Hi, this is Bobby Brown, and welcome to another fucking podcast.
Truly a sight to behold. The man beat the once great champ, now a study in moppishness. No longer the victory-hungry stallion we've raced so many times before, but a pathetic, washed-up, aged ex-champion.
All right, let's go.
I think you know the guy. And I think you know him pretty damn well. His name is
Izzy Presley.
Izzy Presley.
Izzy Presley.
Izzy Presley.
Izzy Presley. Izzy Presley. Izzy Presley.
What's my name? Say my name, bitch!
My good friend, Izzy Presley.
Izzy Presley.
Izzy Presley.
Izzy Presley. Ouch!
Izzy Presley. Whoa, that sounds a little weird.
Izzy Presley.
Izzy Presley.
Izzy Presley, the heaviest, girthiest rock DJ around.
Hey, this is Jeff LeBar. You listen to Izzy Presley. Those aren't pillows!
Jeff, maybe they are pillows. I don't know. Hello, Las Vegas. Hello, world. Hello, my loyal minions. It is good to see you. It's always good to be seen. I'm Izzy Presley. I'm the host of the program. It's called Another Effing Podcast. I have a great show lined up for you. And before we get to our guests, just want to remind you, hit that Patreon. It's only $5 a month. Patreon.com/RealIzzyPresley. This show is going to come out, Mitch, on the 24th and 25th. Today's the 15th. You know what's happening tonight? This is going on the Patreon. This is going on the Patreon tonight.
Wonderful. So people can hear it tonight. And if the world doesn't exist on October 24th, then
That's right.
they will have heard it.
That's right. That's right. And it's ad-free. Patreon's ad-free, completely ad-free. That's what you want. That's what you need. Just really quick, if you are in Vegas tonight, Friday the 24th, come down to the Tuscany, and One Last Kiss is playing, and I'm hosting the show. It's going to be great. Halloween contest is going to be great. And November 13th, One Last Kiss, The Bones at the Dive Bar, the official, unofficial pre-party for the Kiss Fest that is going on. And I will also be hosting that. A lot of great stuff going on. DJ Noise is coming in. We got Yo Dog is coming out, hanging out in the parking lot and selling some chili dogs and kind of good stuff like that. But without further ado, I'm very excited about this one. Ladies and gentlemen, this man is an icon in the PR world. He's a former journalist, which I really want to get into, especially because he did it in the 70s, which is really, really freaking cool. He is from the Schneider Rondon organization, also formerly the MSO, Mitch Schneider organization, among a couple others. Mitch Schneider. Do you prefer Mitch or Mitchell?
Mitch.
I like it because I interviewed Brian Slagle this afternoon, and he goes, "Tell Mitchell I said hi."
Okay. And yeah, because we worked briefly with Guar on this when they first came out. And it was just, it was perfectly insane. And something like that always will attract me.
Yeah.
That's, like when I was 16 years old, I used to read the Village Voice, and that was 1972.
Mm-hmm.
I saw an ad and a story about the New York Dolls. So I went down to Mercer Art Center with my friend. We were 16 years old, and it was $3 to get in. The opening act was Ruby and the Rednecks. Their debut album wouldn't come out until the following June. And we had our heads blown off, because you have to think 1972, it's like me and my friends are listening to the Grateful Dead, the Allman Brothers, Deep Purple, Sabbath, Poco, New Riders, the Purple Sage, because you could be all over the map because radio would play everything.
Yeah.
So we went down, and just the visual aspect was just really galvanizing for me. And of course, the New York Dolls are going to set the stage for Kiss.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
There was some early rivalry there, of course, because, one of my clients, David Bowie, who I worked with for 22 years, he used to tell me, it's not who does it first, it's who does it second, which is really amazing that he said it, because he will tell you that he followed Lou Reed, he followed Mark Bolan, and he would just say, I'm a culture vulture. And he would that was his thing. And so that was a really exciting time in rock and roll. And I cherish it. It's obviously before the internet. So a lot of this stuff is playing in your mind. And then you have to ask yourself, was I really there? In my case, I'm very lucky. I was writing for Good Times, a Long Island weekly, bi-weekly, then it's now a monthly, and it still publishes.
Oh, wow.
So I have a record of shows I went to that I don't even remember going to.
Wow.
There are
Wow.
just some that I scratch my head and go, was I there? Whether it was like a Savoy Brown show or just something. I was like, wow, I didn't know I was there, but I know I was there because my byline's on it.
Well, I have to ask you this because of the era. Did you ever get to see Elvis?
No. And in my age group, Elvis was not a cultural hero.
Yeah,
Um,
it's understandable.
at that point, it's like, you're going after Hendrix, Cream, The Doors.
Yeah,
That's kind of what's going to light your world up. Elvis was not, despite his greatness, he was not counterculture.
right.
And if you were
Makes
somebody
sense.
who is, glued to FM radio, Elvis was not going to really be in your wheelhouse. Although in my house, there was for my older brother, there was Jailhouse Rock. All those singles were there,
Hmm.
so you're aware of his importance.
Yeah.
But for a kid who wanted to know about the counterculture, I didn't run to it.
Oh, that makes sense. So you like as a journalist, you didn't write anything when he died.
No,
There
no,
was no inkling whatsoever.
no.
It had no effect on you whatsoever.
It just didn't. It was sort of like, wow, this is really intensely sad,
Yeah.
and it's obviously following the earlier deaths of Jim Morrison,
Hmm.
Hendrix, and Joplin. And his story, obviously he got heavy, there
Yeah.
was drugs. And t-shirt I have, should have wore it tonight. I have a t-shirt that says culture, and there's a picture of Nixon and Elvis Presley shaking hands.
Wow. That's
And
cool.
it's such a great t-shirt to wear out because people can't figure what side of the aisle you're on,
Right.
because it's just like an image of chaos.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's
I
wild.
got to wear it out one night
You
and
do.
just watch people start to unravel in front of my eyes. It's one of those great t-shirts. If you wear it, in an airport, you have a million eyes on you and people just they don't know what to make of it, which is exciting.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just like, dude, that's badass. Where do I get one of those? It's just badass. So you brought up Kiss. Do you remember when you first Kiss first came on your radar? Michael Brandvold told me to say hi too, by the way.
Okay, big hello to Michael. So yeah, Kiss comes on my radar because you see that they're playing. Because if you had seen the New York Dolls, then you start to be very keenly aware of the scene that's happening in New York City, and you
Yeah.
see Kiss is playing at the Hotel Diplomat and interesting venues, and they just didn't get on my radar then. And I think because there was that rivalry between the Dolls and Kiss,
Mhm.
that in my mind, I didn't, I took sides.
That's
And
funny.
because I had seen the Dolls first,
Yeah.
and look, they were anointed by the rock critic intelligentsia,
Hmm.
and Kiss were certainly not.
Hmm.
Not to get too far ahead of the story, I would go on to handle Kiss during the non-makeup era when Bruce Kulick was in the group, and it's so happy that I had a chance to reunite. And
Yeah.
Bruce is now a friend here in Las
Yeah.
Vegas.
Great guy.
So that was an interesting time because we had great press for them in all of those magazines, whether it's Hit Parade or
Hmm.
Faces. And although they had some MTV hits, they weren't cracking the mainstream like they were
No.
obviously when they wore the makeup. As a journalist, I wrote about Love Gun. It was a lead review for Circus, and I didn't like it. Um, and I think I told this to Gene and Paul when I first started working with them. My position was I was a fan of the Sex Pistols, and okay, so Sex Pistols, and now you're telling me Love Gun. So it immediately put me on the other side of the fence,
Right.
that this is not as I mean, I liked the anarchy that was being served up by the Sex
Yeah. Yeah.
Pistols.
Yeah.
So Love Gun, the same thing. I reviewed Ted Nugent's Weekend Warriors for
Mhm.
Rolling Stone, and I remember taking the position that this is really a fine sounding record, and it's perfect for people who are only into anarchy on the weekends.
It's a great line.
Because they're blue collar workers,
Yeah.
and I was somebody who worked too. I wasn't an anarchist.
Right.
You could only sort of like let go, kind of on the weekends, sort of. So I would do that. In being a rock critic, it's really important to have a point of view.
Hmm.
Um, and to know how to express it. And the great rock critic Robert Christgau from the Village Voice, he used to say that a great way to write a story is like build an argument. What is your position? And start drawing on examples from the album. Is this living up to sort of maybe the boast of the title? Do the lyrics fall short? Are they right on it? Is it matched with the music? And so on and so forth. So I used to sit um, in the Bronx in my parents' house. I was at that point 18, 19 when I started writing. And you have to remember, here I am. An album comes in by David Bowie called Low. And this is like one of the great rock singers.
Yeah.
And one side of it is virtual. Well, first of all, one side is all instrumental. And there's one side that has vocals. So you have to think about this. Okay, so this is coming to you. This is like one of rock's greatest stars. And he's basically taken his vocals off virtually a whole side of an album.
Wow. Yeah.
And you're sitting there and, the internet is not really happening. So you're kind of going to yourself, what are other people thinking about this record at Rolling Stone or wherever who are going to write about it? The record had a pedigree because obviously Brian Eno produced it. So you knew it was coming in from a highly artistic place and you could get with that mindset. But it was shocking just to sit there and go, I couldn't refer to like, what's the growing buzz on this record?
Yeah.
Are people digging it? Are they being alienated by it? So that was really exciting to like call the shots. And you have to remember, test pressing. So there's no artwork given to you.
Right.
Once in a while, you'd get the artwork. They would maybe mail you the lyrics or something if I asked for it, or it came in the package. I just forget. But that's how the world rolled then. It was just really different.
So when they sent you something to review, they sent you a test pressing.
Yeah.
They didn't send a promo copy. It was a test pressing.
Yeah, and I wish I would have saved all the test pressing because I have I do have some great CDs in my house, advanced CDs before they're truly advanced CDs, like Tom Petty's Wildflowers, Alanis Morissette's supposed former Infatuation Junkie, or second record, all people I work with, so I would get the music.
Right.
And so I did save the key ones, but I should have even saved all the advanced CDs that were given to me, that were prepared for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but then again, there's not room for everything to keep, and you can't take it with
Trust
you
me,
when
I
you
get
go.
that.
I did save most of my writings, and as you can see online, like I will post some stuff once in a while. Like I just posted one about being at an Iggy Pop Ramones show at the Palladium in New York City in 1977. And it was just one of those incredible nights because the music scene was changing. And it was a serious threat to mainstream rockers. And I remember that show came when the Ramones put out their third record, which is their greatest record, Rocket to Russia. But when I first heard their album, the debut, I didn't align with it because at that point I'd experienced garage rock already, and then my tastes had become more Bowie, Roxy. And I thought when I heard the Ramones record, for my taste, like, why are you going back? I mean, I'd already heard Iggy and the Stooges.
Yeah.
So I didn't sort of like, so that primitive quality that they had didn't seem as revolutionary to my ears. So I went, eh. And then the second record came out very fast, the Ramones Leave Home. It's a bit more of the same. But on Rocket to Russia, it just all comes together. Sound, the songs. I mean, Rockaway Beach is probably one of the greatest rock and roll tunes ever.
Yeah.
So that night was in connection with with the release of that record, and they were opening for Iggy, and it was just really remarkable. Soupy Sales introduced
wow.
Iggy on stage because Hunt and Tony Sales, Soupy's kids, are in the band.
Oh shit, I didn't know that.
And then you're looking around. There's Patti Smith. There's the Dead Boys and the Dictators. I come from the Bronx. The Dictators come from the Bronx.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize there is a missing link between the New York Dolls and the Ramones, and it's the Dictators.
And it's wild because the Dictators are still around.
Yeah, I think in various forms.
Yeah, because my good friend Keith Roth, who's on Sirius XM, he's veteran of this show as well. He's in the Dictators. Okay. So it's just I don't see that whole genre. It's nothing. I mean, not that it's nothing. It's
Right.
just like you said, there's just nothing there that grabbed me, So I never really got into the Ramones. I never really. I went to a Ramones tribute show that they used to do in Minneapolis every
Yeah.
year, and it was like 3 hours long, and just different music. Like it was like a jam night type thing. And I'm just like, it all sounds the same,
Yeah. Well, you know what it is? I think, yeah, there is definitely a sameness. In fact, in that review that I posted from Good Times of Iggy and the Ramones, I did say in there, I said, I love the energy of this band, but the sameness of the sound is going to hurt them. And then I wrote, but their admirers would probably would just tell me to fuck off. And I was,
Right.
yes, and I was right. They did ultimately connect. What was really exciting to me about all of that music was the lyrics. Like the Dead Boys, I mean, you listen to Sonic Reducer, it starts to capture that sense of people being really alienated. And growing up in New York City, Rupert Murdoch takes over the New York Post, and the New York Post, blue collar paper, and he turns it sensationalist. So, like when the Son of Sam killings happened, the serial killer. By the way, Son of Sam went to my high school.
Really?
He graduated 3 years before I did.
Wow.
I never knew him.
Right. But you were in the same building with him.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, you might say I might have had his desk in one of my classes. I don't know. So so like one of the great crazy headlines of the New York Post was after they capture David Berkowitz, the Son of Sam, there's a picture of him laying in a jail cell, and the headline says Sam sleeps. And this is like a daily newspaper.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it was, whoa. So the punkers are definitely feeding off the sensationalism of the newspaper reportage. And you're seeing the lyrics just sort of capture this sense of like just crazy anarchy that was happening in New York City at that point. So like, just driving over here, I have a great it's called Overseas Punk Gems, and that's my my playlist on Spotify. Undertones are on there, Buzzcocks, all of these great bands. I mean, these are sharp sounding records with really incisive lyrics that are very special. I do miss that era of music. It really was galvanizing.
Well, I think it goes with the age too. 'Cause when you're a certain age and you're getting exposed to stuff, like I heard first heard Kiss when I was 4 years old, but like in the 80s, that was my teenage years, into the early 90s. And once the 80s glam rock, as I call it, I hate that term hair metal, which I'm sure you've dealt with that.
Yeah, it's like it never really bothered me. I thought it was kind of funny,
Yeah.
and it did capture, I think, a sense of humor that those bands had.
True.
And I handled a lot of them. I
know.
I did Poison, Aerosmith, Whitesnake. Then we can go down to the next tier: Shotgun Messiah, Babylon ID, Electric Boys.
Who was the biggest pain in the ass, and why was it XYZ?
What do you? Well, so you're talking about Pat?
Pat Fontaine,
Yeah. Right. So XYZ is one of the bands that we handle. I only have good memories of them. But we reunited here in Las Vegas, and he came to one of my mixers, because I do these people need people mixers where I just love to invite people and just they can all vibe with each other. And Pat reintroduced himself to me, and I said, "Wow, XYZ," So that was great. So we did all of that. I have to tell you, I did Rat. God, what's one of the great things I did with Rat for PR? I got them a key to the city. Mayor Bradley in Los Angeles gave it to them, and I asked if he could write on the proclamation. I have to find it somewhere, that he would give the group a key to the city's sewers.
Oh my God, that is gold.
Which riffed off, Rat.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have the proclamation exists. I think I have it in the house somewhere. Maybe it exists somewhere online. So I would do crazy PR stuff like that. And I relish what I do, and I handle lots of great artists now. I think the time was just different then, that there was the hair metal bands, or glam rock, or the post 80s glam rock.
Yeah.
Those guys had so much ambition that it was really remarkable to me. And that by the time grunge comes around, it starts to get really depressing. I would tell people there's nothing more exciting than being backstage at a Poison show.
Right.
Before they go on, they have their pool, filled up with beer.
Yeah.
There's great music. By the way, one of the great backstage scenes was the Black Crowes.
Oh, I can just imagine.
And I handled them for many, many years. And I remember this one time I was at Radio City when Oasis, whose career was not taking off, even though they had hits, couldn't really they couldn't resonate in America. So they took a tour with the Black Crowes. It was co-headline, but
what year was this about? Was
maybe late 90s.
Late night. I think I saw that show at Excel Energy Center in St. Paul. It would have been early. That was early 2000s. Maybe they had did it before that.
Yeah, I think you're right because there was one, and it was called the Tour of Brotherly Love, which was playing off the the fights that all the brothers would have in both bands. And I was at Radio City Music Hall. Oasis comes off stage. They go into the Black Crowes backstage area. And the Black Crowes have the greatest music playing. They're going into Terry Reid. They're going deep into rock's back pages for their music. And Oasis were just vibing with them. And then all of a sudden, the road manager says he screams out to the Black Crowes, "You're on stage in 3 minutes." So I was just having such a great time being amidst these great people, enjoying themselves, enjoying the great music. Then I had to run downstairs. And by the time I got into the front area where my seat was, the Black Crowes were into their first song. And what I thought was great, because, we're living in an era now, and not to really put anybody down, there are people doing prayer circles before they go on stage. The Black Crowes, there was no prayers. I mean, it was a different kind of prayer circle, I might say. It was just about getting loose in many different ways, including the music. And they took that energy of their party backstage right onto the stage, and I got to experience it both. And it's one of my most indelible nights of being in the music business.
Yeah,
because it was no bullshit. It was real, and it was funny. Like, you're on stage, your party has to stop. There's like 5,000 people at Radio City Music Hall.
Yeah. Well, that's just wild. It's so funny that you talk about the party and then into the depression of grunge, because I always say that people can shit on 80s rock all they want, but for me it was an escape from reality, because it was about the drugs, it was about the chicks, it was about the party. And then you get to the Seattle scene where the drug of choice was different. You go from the cocaine, which is the upper, to the downer of the heroin, and all of a sudden they're singing about how bad their life is. It's like, dude, I know how bad my life sucks. Give me the whores.
So what's really interesting about the grunge era, and lyrically for some of those bands, they're talking about being the kids of of divorced parents. Now, that was not a topic.
Right.
That was really in popular music then. So grunge brought a real thinking person's attitude, philosophy, outlook to music, which was really important.
Yeah.
But there is just, you can't deny when you turn the radio on and you hear Poison's "Ain't Nothing But a Good Time," it just makes you feel like you're alive and maybe the world's not as messed up as it is, and so on. And those guys, like CeCe DeVille, he loved me the second I told him I saw the New York Dolls, because his guitar style is right off of Johnny Thunder.
Absolutely.
It's a more metal version of it.
Right.
But at its core, it's like you listen to some of those, CC guitar runs, they're right out of the Thunder, style book. And so he was like, tell me about it. Got such a funny Poison story. I remember I go out to meet them at a state fair in Michigan. And because I was, the group was going to meet me for the first time. Management kind of hired me already, but they said, you really should meet the group and sign off on you. And I said, well, that's great, because I would like to have that sign off. So they, so I feel like they'll be confident in me. And I remember, one of the things I like to do with musicians, I like to interview them, or if I'm not getting to the interview part yet, just have conversations like, hey, what bands inspired you? And I remember I asked Bobby Dahl, like, which band, really had an influence on you? And he said Foghat. And to me, it was utterly shocking.
Yeah.
Like, out of all the bands, and that is not to put Bobby down or anything.
Right.
If you hear Slow Ride, Fool for the City, there is this arena rock, big positive feeling. And if you hear it at a certain age, it's going to impact you. And I get it. But I just remember scratching my head going, wow, I mean, so much so that I can just remember it right now.
Oh, it's so wild. It's so funny because I work on the Monsters of Rock cruise,
Uh-huh.
Cruise of the Edge, and on the Blue, Larry Moran, who I'm
Yeah.
sure you know.
Yeah.
And we do these charity auctions. And on the last year's on the Blue Cruise, one of the items that was up for auction was a fog hat. But all it said was fog. So it was a fog hat. It was like the most brilliant thing ever, you know?
That's fun. Yeah, it captures the sense of humor of that time. I mean, I remember going to a Black Sabbath party up in a hotel with an indoor pool, and I forget which hotel it was, and it was celebrating, I forget which Sabbath album, and the cake went in the pool that they presented the group with. It was just all these kind of like hijinks.
Yeah.
One of the great things about being a rock critic in New York City in the 70s, it was record company big budgets. Every group that came through New York City were given an after party.
Yeah.
I remember for 10cc, I went to a Jamaican restaurant because it was Jamaican Holiday. One of their songs was, so there was always like a tie-in. One of the craziest parties I went to was the Leonard Skinner party. And this is definitely when, you know, Ronnie's in the band. And it was held at Nathan's on like 56th Street in the downstairs one, because there were various locations. From that night, you can find a picture. And my friend Jim Farber, who's a very acclaimed journalist, rock journalist, who still writes, we hung out to the end. And Richard Aaron, the photographer who photographed a lot of amazing stuff, they brought two monkeys were brought to this party.
Christ.
So Richard Aaron had the idea to sort of place the monkeys next to Leonard Skinner, two of them, and put a cigarette. So like I'll have to send you. It's on the internet. You can find it.
Yeah.
And like the monkey like holding a cigarette, and it was just like one of those crazy things because we stayed at the end of the party, and I looked over and I went. And years later, I asked my friend Jim, because I think that picture probably appeared in the random notes section of Rolling Stone, but I don't remember it. But I asked Jim, were we really there? And he goes, Mitch, yes. Because so much of it is because the internet didn't exist.
Right.
And a lot of it is, you know, pulled from your mind. So I was in many situations that I'm gonna post a story in November, because I looked 1975. I had a disco column in Good Times. Aside from writing about rock, I love disco.
Wow.
You grow up in New York City, you knew, especially 1973, before disco is reaching critical mass. It's a combination of Latin rock and R&B. You mix it together, and you're going to get disco. And so, you know, listen, think of the OJ song, I Love Music. It starts out with congas.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's 1975. So I write about in this column that I was invited as a press person to come to the unveiling of Donna Summer at a posh Manhattan disco, where she performed, probably to a backing track, Love to Love You Baby, which of course is one of the most, you know, famous and controversial songs, because the way she, you know, she impersonates orgasm.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So that song in its day was really super controversial.
Yeah.
And then she performed it, and I'm like going through my articles going, wow, 50 years ago, in November 1975, here I was watching, you know, Donna Summer's unveiling, as that song is starting to become a hit before it goes the whole way. So I had like great moments like that. And again, my stories are my internet. It's kind of like like the database, like, oh yeah, I was there at that show. I remember going to see like Rufus at the Felt Forum, which was the smaller adjoining place to the Madison Square Garden. And I remember like Chaka Khan, she was on stage, and she would kind of like tease the guys in the front, like to try to, like, you know, touch her legs, because it was not, those shows really didn't have barriers then like they do now.
Yeah.
And as they would grab like for her feet, she'd kick them. And it was
Great.
and I wrote, I have to find that review, and I know I wrote about it because I thought, wow, that's great. It's,
Yeah.
she was definitely into sort of like the burlesque of the moment.
Mhm.
She was great. So I went to all these great shows, and
Were you seeing? Were you seeing like Blondie?
yeah.
What were your thoughts of Blondie then, and compared to what they turned into when they got the radio success?
Okay, so the first time I go to CBGB's, it's a great story there. I'm writing for Good Times. I think it's 75. And my friends down the street said their friend is going to be over their house and you should come over. His name is Walter Lore. So I go over there and Walter says, "Oh, I'm in a band called Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers and we're playing at CBGB's." And he knew I was writing for Good Times. He goes, "You should come." So I went to the show and that was incredible because that's before CBGB's reaches critical mass. And that show, and I'll send you that review that I wrote that night. I was very naive, but I could definitely feel that glitter rock, which the New York Dolls
Mhm.
Just made so glorious. It was changing, and then the heroin entered the scene, and then at that point, Richard Hell was in Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers. They might have even just been called the Heartbreakers then. And there was a song he had that he would use on his solo career when he did that after he leaves the Heartbreakers called The Blank Generation. And here it is 75, and this is before punk really happened.
Yeah.
And I'm watching for the first time, never having heard a record because it wasn't recorded. I belong to the blank generation. I could take it or leave it each time. And right away, it's like, wait, that's a big attitude to have. That was so different from what glam rock was. Glam rock was about a lot of things. And, I mean, everything from having a good time to the craziness of New York City,
Mhm.
going out, and the early drugs and all of that.
Yeah.
And now it turns darker. So I don't get to see Blondie at CBGB's, but I see them open for Iggy at the Palladium. And that Iggy show precedes the one that I would see him with later. And that's the tour where David Bowie is the keyboardist and background vocalist. So
Wow.
Blondie is the opening act. So that's early 77. And that's another great night in New York City because you could feel that these bands who had been simmering, they were starting to gain ground.
Mhm.
And that was wonderful. And they were, when you put on Blondie's greatest hits, every song sounds different. I mean, think about
Mhm.
The Tide is High,
Right.
to Call Me,
Mhm.
to their original early punk roots with that great song Ex Offender. They,
Then you have the rap.
yes, you have the rap. And then she puts out kind of a rap album too. It was called, I think, Kuru, something like that.
Mhm.
But anyway, yeah. So that was great. I remember seeing the Talking Heads at CBGB's when they were a three-piece before they add Jerry Harrison. Um, and just experiencing it was really remarkable too, because, aside from CBGB's, there was Max's Kansas City. And I saw Patti Smith there. And then there was a club called Hurrah. I saw X, God, one of my favorite bands. So I see them in November 1978, and they don't even put their debut album out until 1980. And everybody's in front of the stage going, like, punk from Los Angeles? Is that even possible? They drive cars. How could it be punk? Because everybody in New York City, it was like you roll up in cabs,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you get out of the subway, and you try not to be seen getting out of the
Yeah.
subway because then people would think you're bridge and tunnel as
Right.
opposed to
Right.
like living on the island itself. And so there was Max's, there was even before, I guess maybe when Max's was happening, but they weren't booking rock yet. There was a place called Club 82. It
Mhm.
was a downstairs basement club. The Dolls played there, and you would go there when they didn't have live music just to dance to the glam rock of the era. And also, you have to remember that, the New York Dolls definitely introduced this concept of men dressing as women.
Yep.
And as you're going into the glam rock world, then I see Wayne County. And Wayne County is the first rock transvestite
Okay.
who ultimately becomes transsexual.
Okay.
And I was there the night at CBGB's where Handsome Dick Manitoba from the Dictators, he's in front of the stage, and there was rivalry between a lot of bands. and he was and as the story is told, that Wayne County thought that he was goading him for being gay,
Mm-hmm.
and so because there was no barrier at CBGB's between the stage and the audience, it's kind of, the stage was like a platform almost, and it really wasn't like a stage,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
I can
yeah.
remember. And the story that Dick Manitoba says, that he went up after goading him, and like there could have been some spitting going on, I forget, that he needs to go to the bathroom, and sometimes you had to step on the stage to get to the bathroom in the back, and Wayne County perceived it, that handsome Dick Manitoba was going to attack him, so Wayne County takes his microphone stand and cracks him
Oh.
over and breaks his collarbone. And at that time, the New York scene splits between people who liked the Dictators
Mhm.
and people who liked Wayne County, and so it became like a Max's Kansas City uh, versus CBGB's, because it just rolled that way. And then, so that was like a division in that. I was just like, I think back and I go, it's crazy. I saw the Dead Boys' first show, and I've told this to Cheetah Chrome when I've seen him out and about here. I saw their very first show, and they were just incredible. And it felt like New York was, or I mean, they were from Ohio,
Okay.
but it was like, wow, America's going to have its own Sex Pistols, because
Yeah.
they had that, with songs like Sonic Reducer and uh, everything, Um, I mean, their first record was called Young, Loud, and Snotty. They seemed really threatening. Great show. So these were all these great elements, and you could read about it in the Village Voice. Lisa Robinson, the great rock critic, she was also the editor of Rock Scene magazine. And although to sell copies, they obviously had to put the rock stars of the day kind of on the cover, but she would slide in all of these groovy new bands from New York City. And that's how some of those bands were gaining national attention, is that she would put stories on them in her national magazine. It was great.
What was it? So, watching all those bands come up in New York, what was that like compared to watching all those bands come up in LA after you had made the move?
um, Well, I feel very lucky, I'll start by saying, because I got to see the renaissance of music in New York City.
Yeah.
That would be, again, Ramones, Talking Heads, Television,
Yeah.
Johnny Thunders. Then I moved to LA in 79. And one of the first shows I see, of course, is X. Having loved them, because I didn't finish that
Right.
particular story, I just fell in love with them, because I thought, wow, punk rhythm, a rockabilly guitarist, a male female vocal dynamic that to my mind was like suggesting Jefferson Airplane. Uh, and I thought, this is all in one band. And although they hadn't put out recordings yet, you could feel from the songs, Johnny Hit and Run, Pauline, Sex and Dying, and High Society. It was like, wow, this is really thrilling.
Mhm.
So I come to LA, and Rodney Bingenheimer is my guide to Los Angeles every Sunday night. Rodney on the Rock.
Yeah.
He would tell you what to listen to, where to go. That was the whole thing. If you want to become part of any music scene, you have to go to the gigs.
Yeah.
And I got to see one of the great unrecorded bands. There is something on Spotify called The Screamers, their demos. The Screamers were an electronic punk band. In some ways, they sounded a little bit like Devo.
Okay.
They were just, and a wild charisma. Tamata DePlenty was the lead singer, a very Iggy styled a lead singer and frontman. And then the Go-Go's, Blasters, and all of this is just happening. And then there's a lot of great groups that didn't achieve success. Alley Cats, The Bags, and my favorite, Castration Squad. It's one of the great names.
Great name. That's awesome.
That's like one of those things. I don't even need to know what your music sounds like.
Right.
I will tell everybody I know that this is my favorite new band, just
Yeah.
simply because the name is just so outrageous.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's great.
that was great. And that's what I always thought was great about the punk scene. Because even though like some people perceive the negativity of it, I thought the humor was just great. And one of the great things about the punk thing, I have to say, the New York Times they would never say, like if they were describing the Sex Pistols and they were talking about Johnny Rotten, they have to put Mr. Rotten. And then for the Damned, it was Mr. Scabies, and so on and so forth. So it was really funny in that era of like when these bands start getting attention, that the traditional mainstream papers are writing about them, and they have to use their format of Mr. Rotten. It was wonderful. Those were like the greatest days. I do keep my my head in to like what's new and coming up. And I mean, I think it's really hard for any musician right now because in some ways I think everything may have been done.
Yeah.
And I try to tell myself, no, there's got to be another way. Sometimes I put on Roxy Music's debut album. There you have a psychedelic, progressive, glam rock band with Brian Eno in it on synth. This is 70, 71, 72 maybe. A glam rock singer, Brian Ferry. And nobody has ever sounded like them ever again. That's how timeless and how unique they were. And I long for something like that. I think these days, I think the economics of having a band, you can't have too many members because the clubs are only going to pay a certain amount of money.
If they pay at all.
Right. If they play it, yeah, if they can pay at all. So you have that. So for whatever reason, they were unique. They had a record company behind them,
Yeah.
and they were able to really explore all of their creative ambitions. It's a wonderful thing. So I look for what's new and fresh. There'll always be somebody who puts a kind of new spin on it. I do miss the virtuosity of the first few eras of rock and roll.
Yeah.
I think one of the problems of music is that I think it's very easy now that people can make recordings in their bedrooms or wherever. And the technology is such that you can sound very good, but there's a big difference between very good and great. And you can fool yourself into thinking you sound very good.
Yeah.
But it may not be good enough.
Right. But I think though sometimes the bad is sometimes good though. If you know what you know what I mean though. I mean it's like it does, rock and roll is not supposed to be perfect.
Right.
So I think there's kind of a gray area in there.
I think there is, but again, if you just listen to the Sex Pistols and Steve Jones' guitar, that's just incredible. And here, their image tended to be of like, they were just rebel rousers or whatever.
Yeah.
But like Steve Jones, that's a virtuosic guitar sound. And I believe that people honed their skills more by playing out live more before they went into the studio. Now it just seems like you can record and put something up on Spotify and then get gigs. But I really felt in the earlier days that when you saw a band come out on stage, even a new band, you knew that they had been sort of workshopping as a live act for maybe 1 to 2 years.
Yeah.
And and I do like, an anarchy aspect of rock and roll, but I also like a dynamite fucking great bass player who's going to hold the sound together.
Right.
So it doesn't, it's not all over the place.
Well, I think another thing too is I think people are too comfortable now because you don't have 6 guys living in a studio apartment together just trying to scrape by.
Yeah.
There's that story of, GNR was living in a fucking a storage unit.
Yeah.
It's like that, to me, that helps create greatness because that is hunger.
Yeah.
And once you lose the hunger, boom, you lose the edge.
I totally agree. It's really difficult, especially now with the way the economy is. I mean, back then, people could afford, a lot of the rock stars who became rock stars, they could afford to live in Manhattan, in Alphabet City of Lower New York City, wherever, and it was you could exist. Like Blondie, they had a place. It's before they had any money. And then now, if you're a new band coming up, you cannot live in Manhattan.
No.
So of course, there's Brooklyn, which is hip, but Brooklyn is now also overpriced.
Right.
So it is really difficult. I think the economy is different. Things are obviously much more expensive. And I think that there's such a gulf between rent and people's salaries. The gulf is so wide. It never used to be as wide back then. So to say that we're going to put a really unique 5 to 6 piece rock and roll band together, that's really difficult to pull off because people have lives and all of that. So so just getting back, so coming to Los Angeles was incredible. So by day, at this point, I'm a publicist.
Yeah, so you did move into PR. Okay.
Yeah, so I got a job. I couldn't find one in New York City. Back then, the industry was small.
Well, let me ask you this: what drew you to the publicity game?
Um, Even though I was writing for Rolling Stone, Circus, Crawdaddy, Good Times, High Fidelity, the editors would keep changing. And every time an editor changed, you might find yourself not writing for that magazine anymore because they're bringing in who they want. Now, that worked to my advantage. I was writing for Circus, and the great original rock critic, Paul Nelson, said, "Hey, Mitch, I'm going to be editing Rolling Stone's record review section. Would you like to write for?" Yeah, like
Yeah.
you didn't, of course, you didn't have to ask me. Just
Yeah.
do it. So that's when I began writing for Rolling Stone. But I started to feel that my options could be limited. I had the forethought of like my future is being dependent on a few people who are changing roles.
Right.
So I said I should become a publicist. I was dealing with publicists. They gave me tickets to shows. They sent me records. And I thought, I think I could do this. And I could, having been a journalist, I could put myself in the mindset of a journalist, and describe music to them in a way that would not be overhyped. And so I get a job and I moved to Los Angeles. I was a junior publicist, Salters, Roskin, Friedman. The company was led by the very great Lee Salters, who handled Frank Sinatra.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Did you ever get to meet Frank?
no. Dolly Parton, Barbara Streisand, and there was a music department. We handled Melissa Manchester, Leif Garrett, Daryl Hall and John Oates, Alice Cooper. So during the day I was handling those kind of people, but I lived right off Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood, and there was that great club, the Starwood.
Yeah.
Before it was knocked down.
Yeah.
Because there were complaints from the residents. Because one of the things about LA, if you put a club on a boulevard, there are residential homes behind the boulevard.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, people are young and they're going to piss on people's lawns, etc. And the neighbors got together and said, we don't want this anymore. And so off went the Starwood. But I lived 2.5 blocks from the Starwood. So I saw Go-Go's, Blasters, X, Grace Jones, Plimsolls, 2020. Aside from the punk bands of LA, there were the power pop bands.
Yeah.
Not kind of like how hair metal doesn't really tell you the story. Power pop doesn't give you the full thing, because like a band like the Plimsolls, they were kind of like more garage rock inspired. And so I would see all this great stuff.
Were you seeing? No, were you seeing like Billy Vera and the Beaters?
Yes, they were. I wasn't a fan, but that's not to say they weren't good. They weren't in my space.
Yeah.
But they would play the Starwood because they were all, and of course at this time you're starting to see these interesting bands coming up that are more in the heavy metal world.
Yeah.
So
Quiet Riot.
Yeah. So what happens for me is I'm working at Salters and Roskin for 3.5 years, and then I get laid off. There was a recession in 1982.
Yep.
So I get laid off and I go back to writing, and I was one of the writers on the Rolling Stone Encyclopedia of Rock, first edition. And then I was doing bios for Epic, and something came in, Quiet Riot. And I know, I know Rudy.
Yeah.
And so I had to write the bio for it. And I remember I dealt with Carol Peters, may she rest in peace, Spencer Proffer, there was Pasha Records. And I took note, wow, cover of Slade's Come On Feel the Noise. And I thought, oh, this is kind of interesting. Like, here's a glam rock band that's being, that their famous songs being covered. And then I remember then I start to work at Michael Levine Public Relations in '83, and I was definitely aware that metal was coming up. So one of my first clients there, when I started in '84, actually, I started there. I think Danny Goldberg, great record executive, calls me and says, "I got this band called Keel." So I go out and I see them, and I adored those guys, their album, The Right to Rock.
Yeah. Ron's a great dude.
Yeah. And I rebonded with him when they played, he played the last Ron Keel show. I know he has like a solo thing, but it was the last time I'm playing Las Vegas in this configuration. I went, thought it was great. They just didn't, if they were on an Epic Records or Warner Brothers, and that's no disrespect to Danny Goldberg's Gold Mountain, I just think they only had so many resources.
Yeah. Well, I think there was a couple labels that just didn't know what to do with rock bands, because there was this band out of Minneapolis called Slave Raider, and they were on RCA, but they were on Jive. And Jive is where everybody went to die, pretty much, because they had no idea what they were, because they were handling a lot of rap stuff. So all of a sudden you get Slave Raider. What the fuck is Slave Raider, you know? And it went nowhere.
So yeah, it just depends, like where you are, what's the label, what's the way it works. I was kind of amazed that here's like metal again. I mean, obviously at this point, Ozzy's happening in the 80s, in the early 80s, with all those classic albums.
Yeah.
And that's a good jumping off point for us to get to my next thing.
Right.
So 1987, I'm working at Michael Levine Public Relations. And at this point, I'm handling Sheenie Easton, Oreo Speedwagon, Wang Chung, Everly Brothers, and they factor into my story. So I get the Everly Brothers a star on Hollywood Boulevard. I have, you know, it just should have been given to them, but there was a lot of politicking. I think it took me 3 years to get them the star. So we get the star, and I thought, well, we got to have a pretty girl in the photo. Let's get Linda Ronstadt, because she had covered Everly Brothers songs. She was out of the country. And then there was Paul McCartney, because he wrote the Everly Brothers single On the Wings of a Nightingale for their reunion record. He wasn't coming to America then because, you know, Lennon had been killed and he feared some kind of similar assassination. And I remember reading somewhere that Tom Petty was a huge fan of the Everly Brothers. So I call up his office, cold call, because no one could email them.
Yeah.
And the woman who picked the phone up, Mary Klauser, remains a friend of mine to this day. I said, I handle the Everly Brothers. They're getting a star on Hollywood Boulevard, and they would be honored. And I had checked this out with the group first.
Right.
If Tom Petty could present them with the star. And she'll get right back to you. It was like one of those things, like, in my mind, it was like 5 minutes later, Tom will do it. Send us over a memo of what you need him to do. And I have that memo because she brought it to me recently. She goes, Mitch, I found this in my archives of how you told, you know, what Tom was going to do. And so that day was great. And I get to talk to Tom Petty. His managers felt very comfortable with me. Just tell him what you need to do. And I remember just telling him, you could say 3 words or you could talk for 3 minutes or 3 hours. It doesn't really matter, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
I think he just kind of liked that I was just so off the cuff like that. So a few months later, he's leaving his publicist at the time. And the manager calls me up and he says, Mitch, would you like a meeting with Tom Petty? We obviously liked when we met you. So I said, yes. So I signed Tom Petty. Then the manager says, you know, I'm handling Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac have reconvened for an album that's going to be called Tango in the Night. Would you like a meeting? So I go up to the house, all the members of Fleetwood Mac are there. And I'm going up against every other publicist in the country.
Of course.
And they say to me, you know, who else do you handle? And I said, well, Tom Petty. And I stopped there. It's all I had to say.
Yeah.
So already I was, but they didn't know that I just had gotten hired. Or maybe they did, maybe they were told. I don't know. And then I remember in the meeting, the subject of photos came up. And I just said, well, you really shouldn't do any photo shoots. You should just do your own photo shoot and have multiple shots and we give them out to the press. Except maybe if Rolling Stone, you know, there's a cover, then maybe that's a separate shoot. And I said, no embarrassing chin shots. And Stevie Nicks looked over and she goes, I like you. And I had what, you know, looking back, I had young gun bravado. And it was really attractive. You know, there are some, you know, when artists of today sign with younger publicists, you know, at first I flinched, like, how come I didn't get a call? How come I didn't get a meeting? And then I think, wait a second, those new people have this young gun bravado that I simply don't have anymore. I have something else called wisdom and professionalism, and I've been around
history.
rodeo.
Yeah.
I have that, and that's appealing to some, but there are some people who want the real young gun. So I was that guy. That was my moment. So I signed Fleetwood Mac, and then I get a call about Ozzy Osbourne. And I remember I met Sharon and Ozzy in Beverly Hills. They were renting a house on the flats of Beverly Hills. I remember I walked in with my partner, Michael Levine, at the time. Actually, he wasn't my partner at the time. I would become a partner at his company a year later. And Ozzy's laying on the floor, bare-chested, probably was drunk or something. And we have the meeting, and she goes, who do you handle? And I said, Tom Petty and Fleetwood Mac. So I signed Ozzy. And she goes, well, you'll be great for Ozzy. And then I have a friend who was working at HK Management, my friend Andrea Cardo, another rest in peace. And she goes, Mitch, I was telling Trudy Green about you, and Hart needs a publicist. And I go over there and she goes, who do you handle? And I said, Tom Petty, Fleetwood Mac, and Hart. This is all happening within a 30-day period.
Oh, that's just wild.
It was one of those things where
snowball effect.
I kept having like lottery tickets.
Yeah.
And it was just really remarkable. So that's how I really get on the map truly as a publicist. And the experiences I had with Ozzy were just incredible.
I heard he was just a sweetheart of a man.
Ozzy was that and more. I mean, the sense of humor was great. I remember it must have been 88. We were sent off to New York City to do promotion for the Randy Rhoads Ozzy tribute live album.
Yeah.
And I remember a town car took me and Ozzy to Mark Weiss's photo studio.
Love Mark.
And somehow, I can't seem to remember that. Did anybody arrange for the town car to wait for us? So and I was, even though I was handling at that point, Sheenie Easton and all of those people, I just sort of never traveled with them and I didn't know. And it just didn't occur to me. Like, I just thought the car would be waiting and I was wrong. So Ozzy and I had to get a cab on a really cold day. And we have all of his clothing. He's carrying some of it and I'm carrying some of it. And he sees me melting down because if you try to get a cab in New York City at 4 o'clock, good luck.
Yeah.
It's the time of the day, for those who may not know, where the cabs are turning over.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So they're returning to where they were, and the new ones haven't exactly come out yet.
Yeah.
So there is like a half hour or more lag where there's not as many cabs. I call it the Cinderella hour of New York City. And we couldn't get a cab. And he sees me melting down and he starts laughing. And I think he was impressed that I cared so much.
Yeah.
But I think he was also like, he got the humor of it.
Yeah.
So he was like that. And, when my daughter was born, Sharon and Ozzy sent over stock to my daughter in Disney. So we have a certificate that actually says Walt Disney and Ozzy and Sharon Osbourne on the same certificate. So they were those people. And, when you work with somebody like Ozzy, you have to be, you're embedded in that world,
right?
Because there's concert cancellations, there's, and Sharon would always say, I'm just thinking now about like when Ozzy would play and TV crews wanted to come shoot. She goes, no, because all they're going to do is get a kid passed out drunk and going to put it on the news at 10 o'clock. It's, this is where your kids are right now.
Right.
And her attitude actually served me well. Years later, we have a meeting with Paul Tollett and Skip Page for what would be Coachella. They come up to our office and they say, we're going to do this festival. And what are your feelings about TV? And I just looked at them and I said, no TV. I said, they're just going to get pictures of kids passed out on chemicals and it's not going to be good. So at that very first Coachella, we had MTV up our nostrils saying they want a position because they got that they got it at Live Aid
everywhere. Yeah.
And we said no. And it was one of those things that it set the stage that no, this is what it, and that's what it was then, that this is a special environment.
Do you think that's one of the reasons Coachella kind of went up to what it was, because you didn't have that aspect of it?
I think that was there, but it does need to be told that the first Coachella is a failure economically. And the reason it's a failure is that the first Coachella happens in October when the bad Woodstock happened 2 months before.
Okay.
And, there was all these images of obviously of kids rioting, etc. And I think parents were just like, you're not going to a rock festival. So the first Coachella only has 20,000 people. It needed 30 to break even.
Okay.
And, from promoting, it could be like the last 500 people could get you over the line when you're promoting an event. And so then Coachella doesn't come back for a year and a half, and it starts in year one, it's 2 days, it comes back as a 1 day, and then it comes back. The year that Coachella reaches critical mass is the year that it was the Pixies, who were never that popular in their heyday, but Kurt Cobain talked up the Pixies so much with Nirvana that all the kids knew that, the Pixies, had a reputation. There was Kraftwerk, Radiohead, and Pixies. I remember looking out at the field, and this might have been year 3 or 4. My mind's a little fuzzy. And I said to my team, wow, take a look. It's starting to happen. So, yes, so in the early days, there was no TV images. So you kind of had to read about it
Yeah.
in newspapers or magazines. I mean, obviously, the online world is starting to percolate by the late 90s after kind of being introduced 96,
Yeah.
97. Um, so that was really big. So there was an aura of mystery and utter coolness. You could not see, with no disrespect, Mark Goodman or Nina Blackwood, bless their hearts, saying we're backstage here at Coachella and
Yeah.
next up is Frank Black. No, that did not happen. Um, so I remember, in the VIP section in maybe years 3 and 4, where, you would have the Paris Hilton start to come to Coachella and that crowd. And uh, the Golden Voice people who put on Coachella, they were like, this is not the image that we want. And so years later, they did take away the VIP section,
Mm-hmm.
remain for VIPs. It used to be VIP and press, but the press were seeing all this. So they were writing about, oh, Paris Hilton's here.
Right.
So now it's still at Coachella, the press section is completely different from the VIP section. Uh, so these are the things, you get to experience in real time. And one of the great things I think about for me, just looking back on my career, a lot of times you're in these moments that you do not know it will be history.
Right.
You have no idea. In fact, if you try to tell yourself that, it would be like sort of highfalutin and ridiculous.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But just looking back, am I going, wow, I saw the New York Dolls before they were signed, and my ticket was $3. And sometimes I have in my the Village Voice, I found through an old website the ad for the very show that I went to, and it says $3.
Wow.
Best $3, right, I ever spent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that so going in those moments, we did PR for Electric Daisy Carnival, including the year, unfortunately, that the girl who was underage OD'd, and then EDC gets kicked out of Los Angeles, and then it moves to Las Vegas.
Okay.
But that was another situation. Like, here we are doing publicity for this massive event. And we were getting a lot of festival business because people knew that we did Coachella. So they figured these people are at least not going to fuck it up.
Right, right, right.
So we would get Voodoo Festival in New Orleans, which was really great because I got to travel.
Yeah.
I got to really see New Orleans in 3 consecutive years, whatever we were doing the festival. Might be more, but my team was doing it, but I went for like 3 years. I just fell in love with the city. So these were just a lot of the great things. So I hire a publicist. I could see EDM was getting big. In fact, people don't realize the very first Coachella, the bill is 70% electronic music.
Really?
Which was starting to happen in the downtown LA raves and over from England. And I remember afterwards, we came back to the office a few days later, we were having lunch, which was great back because, this is like when people had physical offices. You would talk to people over, a sandwich. And I said, I liked the energy of all those electronic artists. I think we should get an electronic publicist in here. So somebody, a publicist who worked for me, Christine Ashton, she goes, I know this gal, Alexandra Greenberg. I said, bring her in. Alex came to us, and then all of a sudden, it's like we're handling David Guetta, Cascade. These are like debut albums, Dead Mouse. And so I got a chance to see that world blow up right in front of us, to the point they put Dead Mouse on the cover of Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting to see that world happen. And I did, a lot of the electronic music, a lot of it I think was a little bit more avant-garde than it is now. Sasha and Digweed, stuff that was coming out of England, Underworld, and obviously from America and Crystal Method from Las Vegas. They were avant-garde. They weren't like on the pop tip. So that really appealed to the rock and roller in me, because I saw the rock and rollness in it.
Okay.
They were just as anti-authoritarian as rockers. I remember like Dead Mouse calling the office and telling Alexandra before he's even like famous, I don't want to do those interviews. And I remember Alex came back into to my office one day. She goes, God, he's like yelling at me on the phone. And I said, this could be good. It might mean he's going to be a star.
Well, so let me ask you this then, Mitch. You think rock and roll is more of an attitude than a genre then?
Yes, I would say for instance, like you can have an artist. I mean, people are saying that about Youngblood, whose music has elements of pop, but he looks like a rock and roller.
Yeah.
But I like when something is anti-authoritarian, something is confrontational, really just against the grain. That it could be it could be a folk singer, even if it just has that element of confrontational edge. So that'll always appeal to me because I mean at that point, I mean I'm a real lyrics guy.
Yeah.
And I mean sure I love I mean with I mean think about AC/DC's songs. Those lyrics are really sharp and well thought out. And not anybody can write them. They put themselves into the mind of a teenage kid and wrote these great lyrics, and that's a real talent. But music that favors lyrics, because lyrics tell you about somebody. I always thought, like growing up, like, wow, that's my, when if I found a band I liked, that's my band. It's kind of like that's my club, that's my gang,
Yeah.
that's a secret society that I want to belong to.
Yeah.
So that will always be appealing.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious because the way you were talking about, this is rock and roll, and then the way the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is, a lot of people hate the fact that there's not actual rock artists going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think there'll always be that sort of controversy going around. Let's see, and just sitting here, looking at where we're doing this podcast, just right off the strip, I couldn't help, but just notice, there's Bally's and it's Horseshoe now. I was David Lee Roth's publicist for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So,
oh boy.
So I become his publicist on the album, and it was a great one, but it didn't get really big. A Little Ain't Enough.
Yeah.
Great song.
Yeah, that was one with Jason Becker, correct?
Yeah. And so I was with David Lee Roth for 10 years, and in that time, he plays Las Vegas, and he does a residency at Bally's, and I'm here for it. And it doesn't go over well. I think if he would have performed a David Lee Roth show, it would have gone over well, but I think he was trying to make it a Vegas show.
Okay.
And it seemed a little corny in some of the aspects of it, although he was trying to appeal to a mass audience, but he was still cursing a lot on stage. And in Vegas in 1995 or 6, 7, whenever that residency was, it was still too much.
Okay.
And it wasn't successful. But I remember being here for that, and then I was handling TLC, and I remember I came to see them. They were headlining the Grand Garden Arena. And wow, and it's like all of a sudden Vegas starts coming into my midst. Although the first time I was here was when Melissa Manchester headlined the Riviera. It was 1983.
Okay.
Yeah, 1982 or 83. And and then of course, I leave Los Angeles with my wife 5 years ago, and we move here for a couple of reasons. Financial incentive for sure, like many others. And also it felt great to open up a new chapter in my life.
Yeah.
I grew up in New York City, came to Los Angeles and came here. In fact, you could actually form a club. Bruce Kulick, Steve Stevens.
Yeah.
It's New York, Los Angeles, and I into Vegas. And I've joked with them. I said we could do actually a club of just those people who did it.
You could.
And I love Las Vegas. Las Vegas has so much New York to it, more than Los Angeles ever did.
Really?
I mean, for example, I just wrote about it because I have a column called, Las Vegas Mixtape at Vegas 411. Nam Wah is a 102-year-old Chinese dim sum restaurant from Chinatown, New York. They just opened a spin-off of it at Rampart Casino.
Okay.
And that's the only one on the West Coast.
Wow.
So it's New York, Philadelphia, and here. And obviously, New York is very Italian.
Yeah.
And I grew up in I'm not Italian, but I grew up in an Italian neighborhood. And here, there are more Italian restaurants, where in Los Angeles, there's more Mexican restaurants.
Right. And there's no Little Italy in Los Angeles.
No. And here, it's not like even though there's not an official Little Italy, I sometimes joke that Summerlin, there are so many Italian restaurants within 3 square miles of Summerlin. It's like, wow. and they just opened another one, iPozzi, at the Rampart Casino. Uh, and there's Ciao Vino, there's Aromi, there's La Strega. I could go on and on. But, and the other great part of Las Vegas is the vintage part, like the Italian American Club for great food. It's 50 plus years old. It's where the Rat Pack used to go.
Where is that?
Oh, you have to, Izzy.
I know. I'm excited now.
Okay. It's on East Sahara. It's in that area that's called Paradise Palms.
Okay.
So it's not too far from here. It is wonderful. It is this big standalone building. You pull up, there's a giant parking lot. There's fake Roman statues out front.
Oh, I love it already.
Right. You will fall in love with it, and the food's great. They also do shows there where they have tribute performers. They do Christmas shows. It's wonderful. That really so somebody when I first got here said, Mitch, you love all things vintage. You should go there. And I went. So that was just great. So pizza, I think, is becoming the main food of Las Vegas.
It's all over the place, yeah.
And I, having come here 5 years ago, I could really see it just keep galvanizing.
So being a New York guy, where's your go-to for pizza, for like at least New York style pizza?
Everything from Dom DeMarco's to Yukon Pizza, which is amazing. It's on East Charleston Boulevard, about a mile east of the Arts District, across the street from the Hunt Ridge Theater.
Okay.
Which is being revitalized. That is just fantastic. It's actually very good too. Miami Slice in the food court of the Fontainebleau.
Really?
And yeah. And, they do, the pepperoni, and then you can put the hot honey on it. So that offers some good kicks. So,
what about that place in New York, Not on the top, but down on the bottom in the little where it's supposed to look like it's New York. It's like, it starts with an S. And I love it because you show your ID.
Yeah.
You get a beer and a slice, and it's like $10.
Yeah.
Which is a great deal. And that, honestly, to me, that's my favorite pizza around here.
I should try that because who doesn't love pizza?
Right.
And now the options are so wonderful. Speaking of Italian, I love the place Parm at the Aria Food Court.
Okay.
It's the spin-off of Carbone.
Okay.
But because it's in the food court, it's price friendly. So you can get a chicken parm sandwich for like $19. That is just mind-blowing there. So there is just, I feel very connected to my New York roots being here. Here's another example. So 2 miles from my house, Namwa, that Chinese restaurant, just opens a spinoff. 1 mile from my house is Rocco's New York Pizzeria.
Yep.
And the other way, a half a mile, is New York Chinese food on Lake Mead Boulevard. And I start to look around and I go, wow. And I was just saying to my wife, I said, in Los Angeles, there's not that fascination with New York City. Here, it's very pronounced,
okay,
which makes me feel really at home. Plus, there's enough Los Angeles feeling in Las Vegas, and also to, with the mountains, especially, nature-wise.
Yeah, for sure.
I always tell people go, what's life like living in Vegas? I go, it's a great blend of nature and neon. And
that's a great explanation.
Thank you. And because it's something fast that I could tell people, and I didn't want to, give them, my whole life story. It's like, that's what this place is great for. My Pacific Ocean is Red Rock Canyon.
Yeah.
And I could just really observe the majesty of beauty. So I love those aspects of this town, and I love our Chinatown, Vegas. People don't realize it's 3 square miles. There's 250 plus restaurants, encompassing Asian and other cuisines. And it's amazing. Because the way it's built, it's all big shopping plazas. You just roll up in your car and you get out. When I was living in LA, I think I went broke paying for valet parking.
You have to valet at freaking strip malls. It's insanity.
Here, it's just user friendly,
yep,
like that, in terms of off strip stuff. So that's been really, that's really wonderful here. And I tell people going, Chinatown in Las Vegas, because the problem of Las Vegas, image wise, is that most people come here for 5 to 6 days.
Yep.
One day is travel.
Yep.
The other day is travel back. And it's so easy to get embedded into the strip, which is one of the things that's so beautiful about it, is that you could drink and you don't have to drive or whatever. You could really
absolutely,
let go. But people don't realize, some people do, but not everybody, that how vital aside from Chinatown, the Arts District
Mm-hmm.
is just remarkable. In the 5 years that I'm here, just to see it growing. On the other side as well, because the Art District, this Charleston Boulevard, and a lot of people obviously know South Main Street, where Esther's Kitchen is.
Yep.
But on the north side of it, there's the Pepper Club, the Doberman Drawing Room, like these amazing bars. And then you have downtown Vegas, Brandon Powers. Like he comes up with these imaginative places, Pachi Pachi, corner of 6th and Carson. It's kind of EDM club vibes, but it's a restaurant, social club, hang, really surreal decor and ambiance. So this is really bold of me to say, but if you take into consideration the Cirque du Soleil shows, Awakening at the Wynn, which are these incredible shows, I think, that blend art and technology, add up the artist residencies, add up the ethnic culture that is available here in Las Vegas. There's even a Lebanese, food festival.
Yeah, right.
I'm seeing all the stuff. So I believe that Las Vegas right now is Paris in the 20s.
Oh, wow.
Or New York or LA in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
I really believe that. And, and then, I mean, obviously you look at the Sphere. Again, this blend of art and technology.
Right.
There are some people who will just say, oh, that's just glitzy, but you have to really dig below and go, wow. I mean, I went to see Awakening at the Wynn, and I was, the cast, there's 60 people in the cast. The stage, it's in the round. The theater was built for the show.
Okay. So it wasn't the theater that David Lee Roth played, just
right.
Oh no, that's not the Wynn. That's
Palace.
Fontainebleau. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's right. David Lee Roth recently played Fontainebleau.
Yeah.
Did you go to that show?
Yeah.
And how was he?
It was Dave.
Wow. Yeah.
It was Dave. And this is what I always say. He's like, he's never been a great singer.
Right.
He's an entertainer. And that's what it was. Did he have his moments? He had a couple of them, but for the most part, it's
Right.
what you would expect from Dave, and you just enjoy the show and the stories. And I walked out of there thinking to myself, you talked about how he was trying to do like a Vegas show.
Yeah.
If he actually did a Vegas, old school Vegas lounge act, it would be the greatest thing ever
Right.
because he has that personality.
Yeah, it was great. The 10 years I worked with him, he was amazing. He was respectful. I just have great feelings about working with him and his sense of humor. One of the great things I remember I read about Van Halen was that they were this perfect blend of sand and Vaseline. And it was like, wow, so Eddie's the Vaseline and David Lee Roth is the sand.
Yeah.
And that's what makes them great.
That's wild.
So to your point, like, yeah, so David Lee Roth, he's going to miss some notes or he's going to throw the microphone to the audience, sing that chorus from there, whatever it's going to be. That's just the way, it's rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly.
People are getting older, but it's better than seeing a hologram.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask. So one of the reasons I did want to get you in here is because you are currently working the Ozzy Osbourne book.
Yes.
What can you tell us about that? What's it like working a book for somebody who's no longer here?
Very interesting. So, by the way, and I think it's being announced tomorrow, the book enters #1 New York Times bestseller nonfiction.
Nice, congratulations.
Yes. So that's really exciting. And they just sent me the chart and it's like Ozzy Osbourne, the next one, Kamala Harris. And I was like, wow, this is great. So, it's really totally heartbreaking that he's not here to see that his second memoir is #1. But the family, who's kept us going through by hiring us for this book. I mean, Jack Osbourne did an interview with Good Morning America. And it was a very moving one because Jack's feelings obviously are still, he's raw.
Yeah.
But he did an interview and there were tears in the interview. So in that case, no, you don't have the person who wrote it around, but obviously his kids have been just incredible. And Sharon's not done interviews for it. That's too soon in this process. But I think, Jack has really upheld the importance of Ozzy. So that's big. It's called Last Rites. When they sent it to me, I read it in 2 sittings over 1 weekend, and I almost didn't want to read it too fast. It's a page turner because you know the ending.
Yeah.
But for me, the takeaway from Ozzy's book it's a story of courage. The last 6, 7 years of his life was living in pain, because of the the bad neck, and the
Right.
spinal, the neck, bad surgery, his fall, is a million things, and obviously the onset, Parkinson's.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that are happening for him. And in the BBC documentary, you see him sitting outside in Los Angeles in his backyard, and he just gives a very uncomfortable look. And Sharon says, "Is that your neck?" And he goes, "Yeah." And so you really could see that he had to contend with all of this. Last time I saw Ozzy, my partner Marcy, who lives in Los Angeles, who's led the campaign more than me in recent years because I moved here.
Yeah.
But I did go back for Sharon's big birthday party. I guess it was her 70th, and Ozzy was there. Jonathan Davis was there. A lot of other folks. I remember just sitting with Ozzy, um, but he really couldn't get up because he didn't really want to. He's very self conscious. He's a rock star too.
Right. Yeah, for
That
sure.
Here he is, walking with the cane, and
I can't fucking let people see me like this, man.
yeah. So I think that was hard. Um, but his sense of humor was great. May I tell a great Ozzy story?
Please, please. That's why I got you here.
All right, this is great. So it's 1987. I sign him, and it's either the first trip to New York or the second trip. But when I told you about when I went to the Mark Weiss studio, that was, I think, the second trip. The first one. So I had just signed him, and it was like, we're off to New York doing interviews. We have to cover for Ozzy. So Sharon didn't come on the trip, but Pat Siciliano, also rest in peace, was the handler. And so we went, and I was sitting in first class with them. And this is where it starts getting crazy. I see Ozzy drinking to the point of literal insanity, and I'm and somehow it gets told to me, maybe Ozzy, he's afraid of flying, so he would drink. So we get off the plane, and there's obviously a car waiting for us at JFK. And I swear I'm not making this up. We get into the car. On the TV in the limo is the film The Man Who Saved Hitler's Brain. And here I'm sitting with Ozzy Osbourne in a dark, big, leather, fashionable horse.
Of course.
And he just looked at me, goes, they're going to kill me on stage one day. And he's completely drunk. And I was just mind blown. But I'm going to have to back up a little bit, because this is where the story it's great. So we're at LAX, about to fly to New York City. And so I feel like I have to get to know Ozzy. I'd only met him once before, and now we're on a trip together.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't too far from the years with the bat biting and when he bit the head off of a dove. And so I just say to him, like, now that I'm dealing with the press, when people ask me about it, is there anything that you would like me to perhaps just say? He changes the topic immediately, and he starts talking about living in California has been really great for me. It's healthy. It's all about, staying fit, and I have colonics. And I was like saying to myself, wow, this is getting a little deeper here. And he said and remember, I was asking him about, like, you bit the head off of the dove. And he says, well, I go to have colonics. And he goes, the last colonic I had was so good that the beak came out.
Oh, Mitch, that is definitely worth a Pat Fontaine laugh.
Yeah.
I love that you have
that has been a drop on this show for at least 12 years.
Wow. So, and I just remember howling with laughter.
Oh my God.
Because he was just putting me on.
Yeah.
So he could deliver the punchline. So that is definitely a big Ozzy story for me. And then it was such a joy to do publicity for him, because, the evangelists were really against him.
Oh yeah.
And they would really, they'd show up to protest his concerts. They would do anything to discredit him. And I remember sitting with Ozzy, and he was saying something about they're all hypocrites or whatever. And I remember I got back from a trip, and it was announced on the news that Oral Roberts, the televangelist,
Yep.
was trying to raise $8 million for some kind of study program. And he said to his followers, if I don't collect the $8 million, I'm going to die. I mean, like something like so insanely crazy. He actually makes $8 million from his followers. And so after he gets it, I talked to Sharon. I said, we could do something here. And the idea was batted around. So Ozzy put out a statement and said, I'm happy to Oral Roberts, and it was done in a telegram. I'm very happy that you didn't have to die for your cause. But now that you've come out of your prayer tower, which he had described, Oral Roberts, that he was in, here's $1 for your psychiatric treatment fund. We got so much news on that. And I always tell people the best kind of publicity is when your artist does not do interviews where they just talk about you.
Yeah.
Can I take you into a Ted Nugent story?
Please.
Okay. So it's 1986. And I'm looking at USA Today in the money section. And it said that Westinghouse was putting Muzak up for sale. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I kind of like put on like my old punk rock hat. And I called Doug Banker up, Ted's manager, and I said, what if we make a bogus offer to buy it and say the reason we want to buy it is that we want to destroy it because Muzak has ruined the best minds of a generation? With those.
Oh my God.
So.
But that just sounds like Ted.
So this is where it goes. So you have to remember, I'm a young gun.
Yeah.
I probably, I call up and a woman, presumably an assistant, answers the phone. And I said, hi, I'm so-and-so. I handle publicity for the rock star Ted Nugent. He read with interest about how music's going up for sale. Now, in the story, it said they were going to ask something like 20 million. I forget the exact figure. So I deliberately come with an under figure.
Yeah.
And I said, Ted would like to offer $8 million. And she says to me, which was golden, she goes, well, that's not even in the realm of what's being discussed. And I said, oh, so then you wouldn't entertain that? And she said, no. So I put a press release out. Muzak declines Ted Nugent's offer to buy.
So brilliant.
I look back and it was just so insane. So it gets into the news, and then Brian Gumbel on the Today Show at the time is talking about it, and Ted's not even being interviewed. And it was like this publicity, and it really, in 1986, Ted's sales, it was like the Little Miss Dangerous album. It wasn't
Cat Crash Fever.
Yeah. It wasn't even Weekend Warriors.
Yeah.
To take it back there. So I really raised his profile. I would do crazy stuff with Nugent. I adored him. So I knew obviously he was a hunter.
Yeah.
And he knew, he knows that I'm liberal.
Yeah.
But I said, I now understand why people hunt. Also, you don't want the deer to inbred and then go into the road, and then people have car accidents and die. He would explain all this to me, and it's like, okay, I'm starting to understand it. Although I never agreed with him when he said, let's whack him, or who killed Bambi, or whatever.
Yeah.
I couldn't buy that. But anyway, I knew where he was coming from, so I said, okay. So I said, Ted, why don't we put out something saying that you're going to open a restaurant in Beverly Hills, and you're creating a prospectus for investors. The restaurant's going to be called Red Meat, and it's going to be a slap in the face to vegetarians everywhere. That was the line that I came up with. So I get it into USA Today. Ted Nugent, has a perspective going around. If you're looking for investors for a restaurant called Red Meat. And, this is a time where Ted's not a big star, so it was my idea to keep him in the news. In telling you that story could not happen today.
No.
Somebody would say, can you email me the prospectus? It would take, sure, you could create it for publicity.
Right.
But back then, nobody really checked. I mean, here's another crazy story I did for Ted. He put his record out, Little Miss Dangerous. So I said to Ted, can you give me a list of the 10 most dangerous women in America? Because people love lists.
Yeah.
It's like PR 101. So I helped him create the list, and we had fun stuff on there. And I gave it to USA Today and saying, Ted Nugent has created this list of the 10 most dangerous women in America. It gets into what was then the Lifeline section, and radio jocks would read right off. That was like the internet, like that column, that and People Magazine, Rolling Stones, Random Notes, whatever. I got that. So I would keep getting him in the news. And so the last time I saw Ted Nugent, he played the Canyon Club in Agora Hills. Maybe this was like 10 years ago. And I remember I said to him, uh, can I tell you what it was like being your publicist in those particular days when you were being hated by a lot of people for the fact that you were a hunter, and a lot of the liberal media just did not resonate with that, to be kind. And I said, I used to tell people this story, and he was all ears. I said, I would tell some journalists who would attack him, imagine you're riding on the Long Island Railroad and there's a serial killer who just walked into a train car. Would you rather be sitting next to Ted Nugent or Michael Stipe?
There's that, yeah.
Because Ted packs a gun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people would go, Mitch, I get it. It's like,
Yeah.
and so when I told the story to Ted, he said, well, then you get the Davy Crockett Award. It was great.
Great.
So I like these amazing times that I've had with people.
Mhm.
I love colorful personalities.
Yeah.
Because they have a great sense of humor, and they understand how that could be used to advance their career through
Yeah,
fun
absolutely.
publicity.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up, because we could go on for hours. Yeah, we haven't even gotten into Bowie.
Oh, can I tell you one great Bowie
Please,
story?
please do.
Okay. So it's 1995, and he's about to put his record out called Outside, which was a collaboration, not a collaboration, but Eno produced it. And so the tour is Bowie and Nine Inch Nails. So I'm flown to Hartford, Connecticut, which is going to be the first show of the tour. It was kind of a co-headline, but Bowie obviously closed the show. So I remember being there the day before, and I was invited to be at the dress rehearsal. So I'm sitting in the back of the auditorium or the shed, amphitheater, wherever it was. Yeah. And I'm taking notes because I knew that I'd have to write a press release about it. And I knew on the night of, I wouldn't have time to really write my notes because I'd be running around with photographers, TV crews, etc. So after the dress rehearsal is over, I just sit and hang out there. And his very famous PA, personal assistant, Coco Schwab, comes over, and I'm only working with David for a couple of years at this point, and she says, he saw you taking notes. He would like you to come back and tell you, and you can tell him what you thought of the show, but you need to be honest. And I said, of course, because they knew I was a rock critic.
Yeah.
So I went back and I praised parts of the show that I really dug. And I said, I have to tell you that I thought the momentum was wrecked when you played a song, your cover version of Scott Walker's song called Night Flights, which was on his not popular album a couple of years prior called Black Tie, White Noise. And I said, because I'm unfamiliar with it mostly, as most people will be, I thought it just wrecked the momentum. And I remember just saying it because I knew I couldn't be a yes man to him.
Right.
And he looked at me and he said, I know that. But my job as an artist is to give the audience what they may not know that they want. And I went, whoa.
That's deep.
And
it's also inspiring at the same time.
Yes. And it was just really remarkable to me because I think if you think about that line, you think about, Bowie changing from glam rock into that sort of funk rock of, young Americans. And then that sort of like German inspired funk rock of the Station to Station record before he goes full blown electronic with Eno.
Yeah.
Like he is gambling his career with every possible move, but it's done in the name of art. And again, as an artist, I feel it's my job to give the audience what they may not know they want. And I just, that has always stuck with me about that's a true artist who can also afford to take those gambles.
Right. Well, one thing they didn't need was that Mick Jagger video for Dancing Under the Street.
Well, David hates that era. In fact, so David, in many of his interviews, talks about how it did make him a star. He finally was able to play stadiums with Let's Dance and all that. But he said he absolutely hated it. He hated it so much, he created a group called Tin Machine with Taking It Back with Hunt and Tony Sales. So I get hired for Bowie for the Tin Machine's second album.
Okay.
And that was incredible, but the press was not really lining up for that Tin Machine project. They wanted Bowie. They
Right.
didn't want a band that was playing noise rock, because Bowie would tell people, I think the Pixies are the greatest group. And I think he was even, yeah, him and Kurt Cobain were talking up this group, just like saying how they changed music. And so that's how I start working with Bowie. And so basically, he kind of throws his career away by forming Tin Machine.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps him artistically interesting.
Right.
And I think Pearl Jam covered Heaven Up Here from the first Tin Machine album. So it was not lost on everybody.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, Bowie, I never got Bowie either, but that sounds like something I might like.
yeah, you should check it out. It's both. I think the second album is not even on Spotify because it was on a label that went belly up, and it's probably caught up in some kind of rights, but it's probably on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
And but the first Tin Machine album, there was also a song called Crack City. It's very noisy, and if you're a fan of Bowie, you have to work to enjoy it. But I don't think it's like an immediate get.
Yeah.
I mean, it has its charms.
Yeah.
So he was somebody who was a true artist and who would take outrageous chances. I mean, when he put his Young Americans album out and switches from glam rock to soul, he even preempts negative criticism by describing the music as plastic soul.
Oh,
Just
that's fun.
think about that.
Yeah.
Oh God, I have to tell you one other story about the
Please.
Sex Pistols. Okay. So
Please.
I get hired to do their reunion tour, the first one.
Mhm.
And I did two others, not the current one that's out now without Johnny Rotten. So I'm flown to England to be at the press conference at the 100 Club, the downstairs club. It's like 10 in the morning. The British press is all there, ready to attack them for, oh, it's a reunion and you're just doing it for the money. So there's no press release that goes out about what the name of the tour is or anything. It's just, you're going to learn about it at the press conference. So a comedian gets on stage to kind of like get the crowd going. And then the group comes on, and Johnny Rotten, before he takes a seat while the others do, he has a beer in his hand. And he says, he looks at the crowd and he goes, do you know why we're here? Because we found a common enemy. And the common enemy is you.
Holy shit.
And it was so great. And then he goes out, and then it's revealed that the tour is called Filthy Lucre, which is filthy money.
Mhm.
So he preempts the criticism by saying, yes. And then he also says, we found a common cause, your money, which was so amazing.
Dude, that's very Gene Simmons.
Yes, it is. It's like basically, I'm going to control the narrative and you will follow.
Yeah.
And that was just incredible. And another great moment was they were getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I was doing a photo shoot with John, and he goes, we're not going. And I said, well, I kind of had a hunch.
Yeah. Right.
And I said, well, they in fact asked me if you would come up with a statement. So he starts to write the statement. I was with my co-publicist, Libby Coffey, and he writes. So we start to write something together, and he goes, I'll get back to you. And then we get a fax the night before, and we're going to put it out. And you can find, it's a hand-scrawled note that says, we are not coming to your, piss, you're just a piss stain. And it's one of the great things. And you'll find go online and type in Sex Pistols, Rock and Roll Fame, letter.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible. And I remember being at the fax machine, because that's how things were done.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because it's 95 and the internet is not as big. So I just remember being at the fax machine with an assistant, and we start faxing. And it was like faxing something out like World War III has started. And it was just really great to see.
So you texted.
Right. And it was just amazing. And when you worked with John, it would be crazy. And I hit one stunt I came up with, and this will be the last thing I think I'll say, but it was great. So at the time when the Sex Pistols reformed, Princess Diana was sort of being ousted from the monarchy, and there was talk about like she may not have the money to lead the kind of life that she's had gotten used to. So I said to the Pistols, I said, "Oh, we should do something and say that you're going to do a benefit concert for her."
Oh, that's cool.
I would do crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So we put something out and saying that the Sex Pistols, feel, even though they had the song, God Save the Queen.
Yep.
It was perfect. And saying that they want to do a benefit concert for Princess Di, who's been unfairly, like ousted from the monarchy. And in the story, the person I gave it to at USA Today or maybe Associated Press called Princess Di's office, and the comment back was no comment, which is worth its weight in gold, because it wasn't like there was nothing said.
Yeah.
It was no comment. So I got that in the press everywhere, and it was like, yes, we're back to creating controversy, and that was great, So that's rock and roll spirit, and
Absolutely.
That's what I live for that.
Well, let's leave on this, because this is one thing I did really want to touch on.
Mm-hmm.
How much has what you're doing right now and the internet affected what you do? Because it's like, it's social media, because now people are hitting up artists, instead of going the proper routes, which is the way to do it out there. Podcasters, if you're going to hit up somebody, hit up their publicist. That's how you do it. Podcasting 101. There you go.
So I'll take you back to a story. I was the Backstreet Boys publicist, proving I can do pretty much any genre if I needed to.
For sure.
So, and those guys, and I saw them at their residency here at the Sphere, and there they were. It's like full vocals. There's no tapes. There's five great, there's five voices that just, soar in harmony. So I remember I was at my house, and my partner, Marcy Rondon, was on the road with the Backstreet Boys, and she's on the way to the airport. And then the manager calls me and says, "I think you should tell Marcy to go back to the hotel, because here's what's happening. We're going to check AJ into rehab and put the tour on pause." You have to remember, this is like the biggest band in the world at this particular point. And they said, "We would like to know how you're planning to handle it." It's a Sunday afternoon in the summer. I was at my pool. And I remember I called Marcy up and I said, "You can't go back. I mean, you have to go back to the hotel. You can't get on that plane back to Los Angeles." She was in Boston. And I said, the tabloid, I remember saying to her, and we both agreed, the tabloids are going to get the story, so let's get ahead of it. So we called management up and said, "We feel we should put a press release out, and we should send the guys without AJ to New York City to go on TRL, on MTV, and the Today Show to talk about how they've been forced to cancel their tour. One of their comrades has fallen from being on the road, from drinking, and the tour is going on pause." So we basically outsmarted the tabloids, and we took control of the narrative.
Right.
Because in this era right now, you need to really control the narrative before the media gets it. I mean, TMZ is perfect.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you could say no comment. That does not work anymore. You have to say something like, "Our client is going through this. They respect their privacy. When there's more to report."
Right.
You need to say something.
Yeah.
You can't go the old no comment. So right now, I mean, I could wake up and, especially when, Ozzy was alive, I'm not telling any tales out of school. There was, during the time where, there was infidelity.
Yeah.
And this had to be addressed. So there were ways that we got in front of the story. I forget exactly how on that. But so now as a publicist, you have to be engaged. Look, it was always a 24/7 business.
Right.
But it became even more of a 24/7 business. And so that's it. You have to be on top of it, and you have to outsmart TMZ. And if something happens, it's like, we got to put something out. So because whoever starts the story, it's always the first shot.
Right. Right.
And then everything else becomes follow-up. So I think that's important. It's pretty much how my job changed.
Love it, Mitch. Dude, thank you so much. I'm going to hit the outro music here. And we're going to say goodbye. And boom. Mitch Schneider, I really appreciate this, man.
Well, thank
and
you.
like we just scratched the surface.
I know. There's so much.
Oh, there is. People want to find you. Where can they find you? Where can they find your newsletters?
Well, here's the deal. So I write a column for the website called Vegas 411. It's called Las Vegas. So the column is called Las Vegas Mixtape. So you just go to Vegas 411. They usually have my column on the front page, and it runs once every 3 weeks. I cover shows, restaurants, offbeat events, fun retail stores. Like, I just love pop culture, and I don't like if you said to me, we're going to go to a music gig like 5 nights in a row, and said no.
Yeah.
Let's go to a burlesque show. Let's go to a groovy new restaurant in the Arts District, and let's really enjoy pop culture and not be limited to one, form. So that's what the column is about. It's about shining a light on the best of Las Vegas. People don't even know that we have 2 Chinatowns here.
Yeah, that's true.
The second Chinatown, opened not opened, but the area became developed in 2020, the year I got here. It's on South Rainbow Boulevard, south of 215. It's a whole new level of Asian restaurants there. So I love going around sometimes telling people, oh, I went to the second Chinatown last night. And they look at me like, what the hell do you mean? And I said, hey, this is your city and you really need to dig in. So my column is just really about digging in, finding out what's groovy, what's new, and what's old. I love vintage stuff. There's just great stores all around that are committed to it. So I'm out there. I try to find new places, and it's not easy. There is so much happening in Las Vegas. Just the level of restaurants. Again, the residencies. I can't go to every one.
Right.
But I mean, I've seen great shows here, and I know there's more. And I know the city right now is in a feeling of economic uncertainty. That's reality. And I guess we'll all find out how it's going to play out once we get beyond the fall.
Exactly. Well, it's amazing what's happening with the Durango, the station casinos. Lower the drinks. People come in and spend money.
Yeah. I must say, I was driving around and I saw that station casino big, LED sign that said margaritas $1.99. So I went where I live in Summerlin. So Red Rock Casino is the nearest station casino to my house. And I just said, I got to go in. So I sat at the bar. It's not at every bar. It's at the bar with the machines, obviously.
Of course.
So I ordered a margarita. So it's $1.99. And you could make it stronger for only $2.
Yeah. So $4 for a double margarita.
Right. And it's just insane. And I was in the afternoon, so I didn't go for the second shot. I had to work more.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow, I got a light buzz. It tasted good, the mix. And I go, wow, this is like the best of Vegas. And there's so many other great food deals right now that's going on. And the city has risen to the occasion. What did I see? Caesar's Palace for the time being is free parking.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Finally.
For now. Look that up. And and I'm just seeing all this, and the people have spoken.
Yep.
And right now, if you go to, I don't work for the Virgin Hotel, but I can tell you, if you go to the Virgin Hotel right now, there's no resort fees, and they reduced the room rates by 40%. And of course, the Virgin Hotel does not have any cost for parking.
Exactly.
So there's a situation of you can come to Vegas. Yeah, you're off the strip by a mile.
Yeah.
But
a Vegas mile.
Right.
A Vegas block.
Right. But that's free parking, no resort fee, and a 40% off rooms, and you're staying in a sophisticated hotel.
Yeah.
So I think the city does have to respond to that. Unfortunately, with social media, when the Fontainebleau opened, people were putting their receipts on, like how much a water cost in the room. And that's unfair. And I'll tell you why. If you stay in a Four Seasons in any city, whether it's Boston, LA, Chicago, Los Angeles, the room service rates are insane. And the Fontainebleau is a luxury hotel.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If you want to stay there, it's going to be unfortunate in terms of some of the prices on things. But people still figure in their minds that Vegas is value city. So it feels especially psycho that it would be that much. They forget that it is a major city and it is a luxury hotel, but that image did not play well on the
Right.
internet. People were like, hell with Vegas, I'll go somewhere else to give my money and blah blah blah, and people get angry. Obviously, I understand that. Um, but I always tell people, come to Vegas. You don't need to stay on the Strip.
Right.
There are plenty of off-Strip hotels, and then you can explore Chinatown, Vegas. You can since you're not on the Strip, it's easier to go to Fremont Street East.
Yeah, for sure.
The clubs, the bars, the culture, the people on the streets, the free concerts they do. Not even in the Fremont Street experience, but they do some at the corner now of 6th Street and Fremont Street
Oh, really?
East, and they have some EDM performers out there. So it's really exciting, and I just love going. I love going out in Vegas because you don't have to travel far. In Los Angeles, I completely felt held hostage by being in my car. And I look at it this way. I know my age, so I can tell you time is tight for me. And if you know that your time is tight, why would you want to spend the available time left sitting in traffic?
Oh, I know. I drove Lyft and Uber
So
in
you know.
LA for 8 years.
Yeah.
And look, everything's 20 minutes away here.
It truly is, unless maybe the ride from Summerlin to Henderson's going to be like 33 minutes or whatever it's going to be. And the great thing here is you're not really confined necessarily to the freeway. The streets. I mean, everybody knows you could take Desert Inn and fly on that street.
Desert Inn is my secret. Yeah.
And sometimes, if I have to go, because like one of my accounts is the Cobra Room now at the Tuscany.
Yeah, absolutely.
So sometimes what I do is I just get off the 15 at Sahara, swing over to Paradise Road, and go down that way.
Yeah.
And it's like I've avoided a lot of stuff that could be crazy on a busy night or whatever.
Yep.
So there's lots of ways to get around here. We're in Los Angeles. If you have to do certain drives, there's really only the freeway.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard. So being here, I feel that I don't feel as like I'm being held hostage. And that was the Los Angeles experience. So that was so that really worked in my favor in being here. And also the first year of being in Vegas was great because the lockdown happened about March 21st or whatever. The restaurants were open here, not every one,
Right.
on May 13th. So I was posting online that my wife, here we are at these restaurants. I was taking food photos. And then somebody said, Mitch, you're experiencing Vegas through a Los Angeles lens, and it's really interesting to read your stuff. And somebody said, you should talk to my friends at casino.org news. So I started writing a column for them. And then from there, I went over to Vegas 411. So I've been writing for them this column for 2.5 years.
That's great.
So that's it. I love the city. I hate to see it get attacked. But look, I understand if somebody is going to charge you $26 for a cocktail, that's a problem, and that needs to be examined.
Exactly. Look, one of my buddies was in town about a year ago. He's staying at Mandalay Bay. He touched the bottle of vodka in his room. Touched it.
Yeah.
Boom. $95. And it was like a bottle of Tito's.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
Right. I know. I hate those refrigerators because if you move something around, so you have to go fight them at the desk about that. So that's unfortunate.
Oh, I helped him drink it.
Oh, you did? Oh.
Yeah. He's like, well, fuck it. I have to pay for it anyways. Might as well enjoy it.
Wow. So, okay. Well, that must have been a great night then.
Oh, it was.
So I mean, I'm a real ambassador of Las Vegas. My column, aside from appearing at Vegas 411, I send it around to lots of folks that I know in Los Angeles and New York City and points elsewhere in America. And people are like saying, I didn't know you had a Chinatown. I didn't even talk about Chinatown too. Yeah. I didn't even know. And I said, it's real and you should experience it. And it's simply what? 1.5 miles from the Venetian on Spring Mountain.
Yeah.
And you could walk it if you wanted to, or you could just take a ride share.
Yep.
And it's wonderful. It's big shopping plazas. The one that's the most notable is Shanghai Plaza. Mm. It's a little difficult to park in there if you go to.
Is that the one with the Golden Tiki?
That's across. No.
Okay.
Oh, that's Spring Mountain Plaza.
Okay.
That's parking is busy there, but you can park in the back also. I know. Oh, I shouldn't have said that.
Edit that out. Oh wait, I'm talking to myself.
Yeah.
I'll beep. I'll put a beep there.
Yeah. So, and yeah, and there's lots of other just great aspects once I lived here. I remember somebody said, Mitch, why don't you just get an MGM credit card? It'll give you free parking in because and MGM now owns 9 hotels, including the Cosmopolitan, which was their most recent acquisition. So there are ways to play it so it doesn't come off. So I'll stand for this, I'll stand for the city and the goodness and the museums. I'm happy on one level that Vegas is going to get a proper art museum, and I think it opens next year with a lot of pieces on loan from Los Angeles top museums. But I hope it doesn't distract from the fact that we have the Punk Rock Museum.
Yeah.
We have the Atomic Museum. Yeah. We
have the only heavy metal museum with Metal Blade Records.
I have to get there.
It's great.
I have to go there. And so I got to call Brian and because I always see Scott at the Mixers.
Yeah. Oh, he told me wanted me to ask you if you wanted to go to Armored Saint tomorrow night.
I can't go out tomorrow night, but that's great. And since I'm doing publicity for the Bones, and the guitarist is in the Bones also, but I have some stuff going on that I can't go out tomorrow night. But so that's great. So yeah, there's just all this wonderful stuff, and the rock and roll community of Las Vegas cannot be underestimated.
I agree.
And it existed in Los Angeles during the hair metal years.
Yeah.
See, I used the phrase.
See? Yeah. See, that's
and
it's all right.
There was rivalry, but rivalry is good because it makes musicians stronger. Saying, we have to do stuff here that's going to make us stand apart from that other band, even though they're our friends.
Yeah,
we got to get a leg up. So rivalry's good, but the rock and roll community's here, and it was just amazing, just for me. Like when I started doing the Mixers, and then you came to one, and then somebody brought somebody else, and then it's like the next time I invited them, and then they brought somebody else, and even my client Mickey Free. Brandon Powers, again, that creative visionary, he brought Jack Banks, a video director, and then he started shooting Mickey Free's videos. He shoots also just awesome social media videos too for Brandon's Pachi Pachi, which I mentioned. So I've now seen that people have met people at the Mixers, so that's been really gratifying for me.
Yeah, for sure.
And the first Mixer I did was in the year June 2021. I did it at Dom DeMarco's. And there were 15 or 20 people because I didn't know many people at that point. And what was just really incredible about it, that was the 3 weeks that the masks came off.
Oh God.
And it was so liberating. It was like,
oh
wow.
My God.
And I looked back at the pictures, and then soon after that, we were told to put the masks back on again.
Right.
And so I called it People Need People. And
yeah.
that title was inspired by the isolationism of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I just decided to keep it. And it's like, you ain't nothing without other people. End of story.
I agree.
It's just the way it is. Everybody needs a friend. Every performer needs a fan. It's just it. So, sadly, the location that I've been using for the past couple of years, the Great Laguna Pool House and Kitchen on the 6th floor of the Palms Place, it's one of 3 restaurants now that have closed due to probably the economy. At the Palms Hotel. So, I'm kind of scouting for another location. I know I won't be able to exactly replicate that.
Right. Well, just do me a favor. Find a place that has a happy hour.
Yeah, it's true. Although, the drinks were happy hour pricing, but their happy hour pricing was wrong.
I think my can of Bud Light was $10.
Yeah, that doesn't feel like happy
brutal.
hour.
That's not happy hour.
Right.
That's brutal.
Yeah,
but it was still fun.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Before I met you, one of the early Mixers, after I did it at Dom DeMarco's a few times, I was walking around that great area of Las Vegas called Commercial Center, New Orleans Square, and I went into that store, Avant Pop, which was a very cool indie bookstore that's not there anymore. Then I went into the horror collectible store, and they said, oh, this cool place just opened called Sister Kim's Kitchen, a soul food restaurant. So I went in, and I just kind of said, this would be great to get people to come here. And so I did a mixer there, and it's
Really?
on a Saturday afternoon, and people could order whatever they wanted. There was no alcohol though,
Right.
but it was like, you should taste what the black community is offering up here in Los Angeles. This food is like insanely great.
Yeah.
So that was great. And there's other places. I mean, I love empanadas. There's a wonderful place called Fugazetta at Sahara and Jones in one of the shopping plazas there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an offshoot of one from Buenos Aires. And I always tell people one of the ways to experience Las Vegas off strip is to get in your car and then get out of your car when you go into a shopping plaza and walk around.
Yeah.
Because that's how I've discovered a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
It's not easy to do in the heat of summer.
Right.
Where it's
Right.
like you can't even imagine that, of course, on a day where it's, the heat is penetrating. But get out, walk around, love your city,
Yeah.
and support places that are close to you, because if you support places that are close to you, you'll make your neighborhood great. I always tell people, don't, you don't have to go, with no disrespect to Chinatown or downtown Vegas. It's like, look what's in your area, because you'll make your area better.
Yeah.
Support it. So I will pick real neighborhood restaurants to write about. Another good one, Limoncello at the Sahara and Cimarron, not too far from where Vamps used to be. Interesting to say it.
Right.
That.
That's bad.
That's just that's great. It's got a little pricey, but it has the sophistication that I think warrants the pricing. It's not like you're being jacked.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I get it. So love your city. That's
One
it.
place you should check out. One of my favorite places, the Blue Ox.
What's it called again?
It's called the Blue Ox. There's
The
two
Blue
of them.
Ox,
There's two
okay.
of them. There's one on Sahara, and there's one the one I go to is on Eastern.
Okay.
And there's two different owners, but they're like brothers,
Yeah.
right? It's a Minnesota bar. They fly in walleye from Minnesota. They fly in the cheese curds from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
They deep fry them there, and it's affordable. And they give you a shit ton of food.
Okay.
And it's a bar restaurant. It's a local bar.
Right.
And
Well,
it's awesome.
I love to get these tips, and there's something to be said, because I haven't really talked about the East Side. You have really wonderful places there at Metro Pizza,
Yep.
which is an offshoot of the Bleecker Street pizza
Mm-hmm.
place in Greenwich Village. You have that here. Like, that was not immediately apparent to me until somebody said, Mitch, okay, just go to Metro Pizza. Like,
Yeah.
you come from New York. What are you waiting for? So I went there. There's a great vintage and modern consignment store called the Purple Chandelier on Eastern and Tropicana. It's 30,000 square feet. And it's incredible if you go in, if you're looking for furniture. So that's on the East Side. So I'm trying to make it more of my mission to
Okay.
really talk up the East Side. And of course, I mentioned the Italian American Club. There's obviously Casa de Amore on the
Yep.
East Side as
Great
well.
place. Yeah.
Right. So there's all of that happening. So people should think about the East Side of Las Vegas.
I've found the other night I was craving a 3 taco plate.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I'm going east. I went east.
You went east.
I went east, and I found this place, La Famal. I can't remember the name of it, but I know exactly. It's the Eastern. It's the Eastern in Tropicana.
Okay.
It's maybe a half a block down.
So that's right near the Purple Chandelier
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's great. And I have to say that I do like Roberto's Taco Shop.
I may have to try it again.
The chili relleno was great. I can't tell you that every dish.
Yeah.
'Cause I tend to be the kind of person, like when if I go to an Italian restaurant, at least for the first time, you got to give me the chicken parm, because that's how I'm going to see
Of
how
course.
real you are
Of course.
as a restaurant. But the chili relleno at Roberto's Taco Shop is just fantastic.
I'll have to give it a shot.
So-
I'll have to give it a shot.
It's worth, like, sometimes I think that if you haven't been to a place in a while, it's good to go back to see if it validates what you originally thought, or maybe it will surprise you and that it upped the ante somehow. So I think that's something to think about. But yeah, so, East Side, downtown, Arts District. We haven't even mentioned Area 15. Area 15 trumps anywhere in New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Miami, and it keeps growing. When it first opened up, it was just called Area 15. It's now called the Area 15 District, because there's multiple buildings on
Okay.
there. So you have the Universal Horror attraction there.
Yep.
You have other buildings. There's the John Wick Experience. There's Illuminarium. It is, and I hear that they're going to build a separate hotel on their
Oh wow.
to even create more of that. So and I love art, and there's so many artful installations that they have at Area 15. So that's something to be viewed and experienced. So I think it's important now. When I told you before that I think Vegas is Paris in the 20s, Area 15 has to be considered in that frame of reference, because that is something that does not exist anywhere else in America to that degree. So that's my love for the city. It's like, wow, go. People don't even know there's a great venue inside Area 15 called The Wall. 250 people.
Oh, wow.
I saw a great band from Vermont who they have a level of popularity in England more so than here. They're called Thus Love. And I went to see them there, and the acoustics were just pristine. The environment was great, everything. And and then you walk right out of that club into the big expanse of Area 15. And then I wandered into this area, and it was silent comedy where you put headphones on and you don't have to worry about hearing other people's laughing or whatever. So that was an experience. And so I feel that Las Vegas really offers just multiple experiences. So love it here.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. Mitch, dude, thank you. I'm going to hit the outro music again.
Yeah. Oh my God. We kept going.
That's all right. But dude, that's all right. I'm totally okay with that, because to me, the more content, the better. Mitch Schneider, thank you so much. Make sure you guys do check out his newsletter. I'll have all those links in the show. And 13th, the big official Kiss pre-party with One Last Kiss and the Bones, and I am hosting that along with DJ Noise is going to be up there jamming. And hey, November 4th, 13th anniversary of Another Effing Podcast, the very first Hall of Fame episode. I am inducting 6 or 7 people. I'm not going to tell you guys exactly who they are until that episode, so it's going to be a lot of fun. But something tells me that that this might be involved.
Okay.
Well, I've been using that drop for long enough. I think he deserves it. So,
Mr. Fontaine.
Gotta love Pat Fontaine and his sister. Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Izzy Presley. On behalf of Mitch Schneider, you guys have a good night. And don't forget, what I lack in talent, I make up for in the cock.